YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back on Total War Rome 2. And this is going to be another faction focus. This time we're going to take a look at Armenia. And I feel like I'm going to talk about the units this time and then show the replay. And maybe that'll be helpful. Maybe we'll get to see some of these units that I mentioned in action. So I'll go in kind of alphabetical order. I haven't hit the RDA or the Aravasi yet, but I did the Arverni not too long ago, and I think I did them decent justice. So we'll have to double back and hit the RDA and the Aravasi, and then we'll just keep going on the list. Athens, Bactria, Boeotia, Carthage, Camarilla. Just keep going and work our way through all of them. Of course, I want to get these done before Attila comes out, and I've already visited most of these, but the reason I'm going to revisit them is because patch 15 and 16 brought major changes to the game, and it's worth revisiting all of them. So Armenia is a variant of Parthia, if you've already been familiar with them in the game. They were added in DLC, of course. I can't remember if they were the free faction or not. Yeah, I don't remember, because they get added in these DLCs or free LCs. But anyway, they were added to the game after the fact. They are similar to Parthia in many ways, but there are some very key differences. Let's take a look at what's available to them. As a general, you have the option of a noble spearman, the Ozit Knights, or the Royal Cataphracts. So in the current state of the game, unless something big changes, I do not ever recommend using the Ozit Knights, not in multiplayer at least. They may be very fun in campaign, but not a good multiplayer unit here, and I'll explain why later. It just kind of depends on what you want your general to be used for. Maybe if you want them to be away from a cavalry fight and to stay fairly safe, the Noble Spear unit might be good, especially if you're thinking you're going to also be facing a lot of cavalry. If we take a look at the Noble Spear unit itself, it has Hoplite Wall, Frenzied Charge, which is interesting, Discipline, Formation Attack, it can hide in the forest, and it's resistant to heat. And that could be handy on certain maps. If you look at the Ozit Knights, they do have Expert Charge Defense, but I think from what, if you want to go watch Maximus's videos on Expert Charge Defense, they're very good, and it basically teaches us that this is pretty much a worthless trait on a cavalry unit, as it has to be dismounted in order to take advantage of it. So really doesn't do you any good. And then it's got good stats and good armor and all that stuff. It's just that at this price you can almost never make a super heavy melee cav worth it. So that would just be my advice there. Now, Royal Cataphracts, these guys are also a good choice, and they're also resistant to heat, which is amazing because they are insanely armored. I don't know how you can be resistant to heat. I guess it's just the fact that it's like a trait that comes to different units in their faction because of where they're at geographically. They have Encourage, Discipline, Trample, which is key, and Diamond, which doesn't do you much good. But anyway, this is a devastating unit on the charge to both, to pretty much any unit in the game. Any unit that gets charged by these guys is going to be feeling it. Infantry charged in the rear are doomed. They will die. And then infantry that's charged unbraced is probably also going to die. So very powerful unit indeed. Now, as far as melee infantry, Armenia is unique in the sense that it's all axes. You have Hillmen, Axemen, and Cartly Axemen. Hillmen are actually not bad when it comes to being meat shield units. They have Javelins. They are extremely low armor and low melee defense. These units will die quickly in combat to almost anything, but just for the Javelins alone, these guys are definitely worth it, and that's why I prefer them as meat shields over Eastern Spearmen. Axemen are a decent unit. They're not particularly good on the weapon damage, but most of their weapon damage is armor piercing. Good portion of it, at least, probably half. No, more than half. 10 is armor piercing, 16 is normal. So that's a good amount of armor piercing damage, and they've got kind of low melee defense, but for the price it's not horrible. Decent armor, pretty so-so on health and base morale. They're pretty low, honestly. They do not have access to shield wall either, though they are resistant to heat. Cartly Axemen are going to be a much more powerful version of the Axemen, and you can see here the main differences. The damage is the same. Melee attack goes up, so that means the Cartly Axemen are going to be hitting more often than the standard Axemen. They have a better charge bonus, a little bit better melee defense, and they have better health and morale, along with shield wall, and shield wall is what can make these guys particularly handy in its current state. Eastern Spearmen are worthless, honestly. They are just worthless units. Maybe baiting missile volleys. They really are not good for anything that I've found yet. Some people enjoy them just because they're so cheap. Persian Hoplites can actually be very handy if used properly. These guys have pretty solid armor, and their morale is low, but they also have Hoplite Wall, which means they can hold. I actually think these guys might have been more worthwhile when they had the square formation. But anyway, we've talked about the Noble Spearmen. These guys have decent weapon damage for a spear unit. It's not as elite as it could be. I think some units have 30. Melee attack's pretty low. Bonus versus large is good. Of course, these guys are going to be good versus cavalry. And their charge bonus is actually pretty strong for a spear unit. And then if you coupled that with frenzied charge, which honestly could be dangerous because it does reduce their melee defense and increases their fatigue. Melee defense is actually not all that great for a unit that has hoplite wall. It's kind of so-so. And the armor is also kind of so-so, but again, the price is not real high on these guys, so it's not bad. The morale and health, though, is pretty good for the price. I wouldn't recommend these guys as a mainline infantry unit, though. Skirmisher-wise, they have access to Eastern Archers, Eastern Javelins, Eastern Slingers, and Elite Persian Archers. Eastern Archers are a good choice. 150 range, good damage, very low base morale, but they've got access to Whistling Shot, and it looks like they're resistant to heat as well, which is kind of a cool trait. Eastern Javelins, kind of a weak unit as far as anything besides throwing javelins, but they do have 41 missile damage. These guys are absolutely deadly to elephants and cavalry. Eastern Slingers I actually really like. For the price, they're a pretty good slinger unit. They have a shield, of course, so in a missile fight with other missile units, they do pretty well. For missile units of similar cost, so like for instance, cheap archers like Eastern Archers would suffer badly versus Eastern Slingers. Elite Persian Archers aren't worth their money. They finally got their health and base morale buffed, which is fine, but they have no armor, which means they're going to get shredded by enemy archers. They don't even have 41 missile attack. These guys are a little better in melee than most archers, which is fine, but without the armor, they're just going to get crushed by cavalry in a charge anyway, so I don't really see the point of Elite Persian Archers. Again, maybe fun for campaign, doesn't serve a lot of purpose in multiplayer. Persian cavalry is great, really. These guys, for the price, deliver a wallop, and they've got an excellent charge bonus. They're listed as very heavy shot cavalry, and that's very important. That mass is going to really help them out on the charge, along with that nice charge bonus. 40 armor is pretty comparable to, like, say, Thessalians or something, and they're in the same price range. Good health, good morale. Very decent unit here. Eastern Cataphracts are one of the main tools of Armenia, and they should be used almost all of the time if you expect success with Armenia. For the price, Eastern Cataphracts deliver punishing performance if used properly. They do have also access to Trample, though you'll want to be careful how you use it. Trample makes your men very tired, excuse me, so you'd want to use it at a key moment in the battle when you need to increase your charge bonus to have maximum effect. These cavalry are good versus enemy cavalry in the charge, pretty much anything except for Royal Cataphracts. They're going to take it down pretty badly. They are devastating versus unbraced infantry or into the rear of infantry, and they can be cycle charged to devastating effect into infantry and really wreck infantry units. Now, the key to using them, though, I like getting these guys into the late game if possible. If you can destroy enemy cavalry, these guys can usually work very well. Your problem is going to be when they get bogged down in melee. That is not what you want to happen. You want to keep them charging and using that devastating charge. Same thing with the Royal Cataphracts. We've discussed them as a general. Very expensive, these. I would stick mostly to Eastern Cataphracts unless you want to use a Royal Cataphract for your general. Melee Cav, they have some great offerings. Noble Blood Cav is an excellent cavalry for the price. It's listed as heavy melee Cav. Very good attack. Nice bonus versus large, absolutely. Decent melee defense and just decent armor and morale. These are very good cavalry. Cappadocians have even more attack, if we take a look, and better weapon damage. These are dangerous cavalry. Of course, they cost a little more as well. And they have a slightly better charge bonus and melee defense, as well as morale. So, definitely good cavalry there. Ozet Knights, I discussed a little bit earlier. Maybe a fun unit in campaign. Right now, they really don't serve a whole lot of purpose in multiplayer, as they're too expensive to make them cost-effective. I mean, if you were absolutely determined to crush an enemy in a big cav fight, you could, but I mean, if you think about it, someone can bring 2 mid-tier cav for the price of these, and it's not going to be a good engagement for them. These horse skirmishers, nice missile damage, and they do have access to Parthian shot, so they can fire 360 whilst moving. Definitely a cheap unit that could be used to decent effect against enemy cav, but with Eastern Cataphracts and horse archers around, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of use for these guys. The horse archers are the Parthian variety, meaning they cost a little more, and they do not have the 40 missile damage that some of the steppe factions do. But I want to say there's another big difference, and I'm going to miss it here. These guys may have better weapon damage or charge or something. I can't remember what the main difference is. They have heavy shot and everything else. Yeah, I don't recall what their main difference is to steppe factions. Let's look real quick. So Parthia has access to the mercenary steppe ones. So 40 missile damage. Heavy oh, they have whistling shot. If you think that's going to play a factor, whistling shot lowers the morale, or no, the melee attack and the shots per minute of enemy units. They're armored horse archers. Again, I believe are the Parthian variety, not the steppe variety, which means that they actually have nice melee attack. Let's see, 40 armor, 45. Let's go over here and pick a steppe faction real quick just to do a quick comparison. So let's grab the Roxolani. 37, 34, 40 missile damage. 36, 24, 35. So you get a little more, let's see, but that's 80 armor versus 75 there. So maybe a little more armor. Yeah, a little more armor. And then again, whistling shot that comes with these variety. Interesting. I like the steppe faction ones better, it appears to me at least. And then you, of course, have these noble horse archers. And these guys really are brutal. Very expensive, though. But they are quite good in melee once they've run out of ammo. So again, these would be a good late game tool. They fire all their ammo. If you can get them alive into the late game, they can be very useful there. And then, of course, they have this artillery that's pretty much not good for anything except for in campaign. You won't be using that in multiplayer. Let's go take a look at the replay where I used Armenia. My opponent picked Macedon, which I suppose Macedon could be used to try and counter Armenia. They have Thurio spears, they have militia hoplites, they have tools to help counter cavalry. Thurio spears are good at countering horse archers. Macedon has access to both cheap and expensive skirmishers. I definitely see Macedon being capable of matching Armenia, but if you like mobility, I would select Armenia. So right off the bat in this battle, I'm going to show the value of horse archers. I see some of my opponent's units that were hidden in this forest, and he's trying to keep them in the forest, maybe hoping I didn't see them, I guess, I don't know. And but having seen them, and I'm hoping that when I get over here that they're away from protection, because this is going to allow me to bring my horse archers in and use them for their best purpose. And the best purpose of horse archers, that I like them for at least, is for shooting enemy cavalry, especially if you can get within range to shoot with heavy shot, which I am at the moment. I immediately switched to heavy shot, which does more damage. Yes, so now they're up to 40 missile damage, and it increases their armor piercing. And this is a companion cav and a Thessalian. The Thessalian doesn't have much armor, it's already lost 4 men, and the companion cavalry is not going to like this either. My men were auto-targeting the Thessalian cav, which is fine. Damage is damage, but I should have been targeting the companion cavalry. They may be on auto-fire too, though. Yeah, they're on auto-fire, so now they're going to switch targets to the companion cav. But as you can see, they've already really hurt this Thessalian cav, which is going to make it less effective in combat. And then they're damaging this companion cavalry bad, and this is a very expensive cav unit. So this is the value of horse archers, and see how the enemy cav just can't get away from him. I can just sit here and match him move for move. If he turns around, I can run away, and I can just chase the enemy cavalry and just wreck them. So companion cav already down 8 men. So this is a very, very bad engagement. My opponent definitely should have made sure those guys were hidden, and should have started running away immediately after realizing they weren't hidden. My main army is a mix of axemen and cartly axemen. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I want to say I have like 4 or 5 cartly axemen. Now over here, I wasn't paying attention to the side of the battle. My opponent brings in horse skirmishers, or skirmish cav, and he badly damages my eastern cataphracts there, and that is an excellent move. Horse skirmishers can really wreck up units like that, and there's a horrible mistake on my part. But now, I mentioned hillmen and the utility of their javelins, and here you're going to see that utility. My opponent does not retreat as horse skirmishers. I get a volley of javelins off, and for whatever reason, my opponent thinks he wants to charge me here. That was definitely a mistake. The horse skirmishers will do almost nothing to the hillmen on the charge because they're so light, and my hillmen will start to cut down horse skirmishers. See there, they don't take a huge amount of damage. My men were probably still getting up off the ground. But then it gives my slingers time to affect the combat as well. So again, Eastern Slingers, many uses on these guys. They're definitely good against light cavalry, like skirmish cav or horse archers. Very good against horse archers, in my opinion. They're very cost effective. Even if a horse archer manages to kill your slingers, they'll spend so much ammo and lose men doing it most of the time that it's totally worth your while. So I like using the Eastern Slingers. And again, here see the long range plays against the horse archers, rapid rate of fire. So they're definitely useful in many, many ways. So let's take a look at the Macedonian army that my opponent brings. Let's see what he's got here. Thurio Spear, Militia Hoplites, Levy Pike. Interesting kind of mix there. Then he's got a center of Hoplites, which is honestly fine against Armenia. Though I do feel like Axemen will probably do pretty well against Hoplites. I think he may have been better suited with Swordsmen here. The high attack of the Swordsmen may have been a lot more dangerous to my Axemen. But don't get me wrong, the Hoplites, if they go into wall, they can hold my men for quite a while. The biggest problem my opponent's going to have is then what? If you hold my men, do you have the tools to take down the Cataphracts that are undoubtedly coming with Armenia? And you should also expect horse archers whenever someone picks Armenia. And my opponent, let's take a look to see if he's done what he should to prepare for that. So that it's a second Levy Pikeman and a second Militia Hoplites, and here's a second Thurio Spear. And then here he's got a Thorax Swords, which again, that's what I would have used for my main line. And his general is a Shield Bearer. I would have used a Royal Peltist here. Royal Peltist would require me to use Cataphracts to get rid of it, whereas the Shield Bearer I'm not as worried about. Yes, it's a tough unit, but it's not going to cause damage as fastly as a Royal Peltist would. So his Thessalian Cav's been wrecked by my Horse Archers. His Companion Cav has been badly damaged by my Horse Archers. He does have some Peltist here, and the Peltist in concert with some cheap spears could potentially be very dangerous to my Cataphracts. But I have Eastern Slingers and a lot of ammo, so my opponent's going to be at my mercy here. He's lost his horse skirmishers. He shouldn't have engaged them this early. He should have kept them and tried to do a little more effective harassment. If he would have had his own long-range skirmishers to keep my slingers busy, it would have required me to use my horse archers to get rid of his horse skirmishers, and that potentially could have worked better for him. He's also going to be forced to take a horrible uphill engagement because he doesn't have the firepower. So in this case, I'm feeling pretty good about my odds, to be honest, but let's just watch. This is all about watching the Armenian units in action, and we'll just kind of see how they interact with the enemy units here. Against Roman-type infantry, the Armenians are going to have their work cut out for them. Cartly Axemen can potentially beat legionary units if it's in shield wall and gets the proper charge and outflanks the Romans, but I mean, it's still a very tough fight for them. Alright, so here's the engagement. My men are going to get lots of nice javelin shots. My opponent has to charge me, so I'm going to let my men discharge their javelins, and then I'll try and get a charge. You see the Axemen come into combat here versus the Hoplites. My guys should do just fine here. His Levy Pikes, I pulled back from him, but then I realized that he's not in Pike Phalanx, so I'm just going to go ahead and engage, kill as many of them as I can before he gets into Pike Phalanx. And then I pulled his Militia Hoplites out here again, probably thinking that they were pikemen. I probably wasn't paying the closest attention. Keeping his Thorax Swords busy with my Hillmen here. Alright, sorry about that, YouTube. My Rome 2 crashed. It's been doing that randomly recently. There must have been some driver update that it's not liking or something. Because even when I got my new graphics card, it wasn't doing that, so I have no idea, but it seems to crash pretty frequently while I'm running my recording software now. So again, must have been some kind of stupid update or something that's causing it. Anyway, my Royal Cataphracts, I managed to get him into his Peltist. I'm picking up this battle pretty much right where we left off. My opponent's already losing some Levy Pikemen up front that he didn't get into Pike formation. Over here he did get his guys finally into Pike formation, but by this point they're so damaged that they're almost useless. My general gets a lot of kills on his Peltist, which is great, but you really need to get a lot of kills with Royal Cataphracts to make it worth it, and they're best used to get into the back of enemy infantry, but I'm not worried about losing any of these infantry engagements anytime soon. My Axemen and Cartly Axemen should be doing very well versus Hoplites, and the reason is because Hoplites are low attack, high armor units, and that's precisely what Axemen excel at fighting. Anything with high armor and low attack, they will do well versus it. And they can even do well against higher attack units or high charge units as long as those units don't get their charge and the Axemen are kind of supported. So again, my Royal Cataphracts are free now. And I'm going to run into the back of the enemy general, and let's get a close-up on that charge. That ought to be pretty fun. Try and get up towards the front of the group here. So I did drop Trample, because I also have the ability to use Second Wind with my general, and you can see it's a devastating charge against what would otherwise be a very strong unit. That Shield Bearer is a very potent unit. So this is the strength of Royal Cataphracts. Rear charges into high-value targets or just critical positions in the battle, and they will be absolutely devastating. So right there I killed about 30 or 40 shield bearers on a real charge, and that's saying something because shield bearers are strong. And again, they're strong, and you can see that I actually lost some Cataphracts in that charge as well. That's how strong they are. Managed to kill a few of my men while I was extricating them from combat. I can now line up my Royal Cataphracts, and I did kind of misuse, I think I used Second Wind a little too early. So my guys will be a little tired for the rest of this battle, but they'll still be able to get the job done. So again, Cataphracts and rear charges, their mass and their high charge bonus is going to make them absolutely brutally efficient. And you can see, just watch the kills rack up there. That was a tired charge uphill. Just to give you an idea just how devastating those guys are. My Eastern Cataphracts got a little misused here, but normally these are very good units. I have other units of Eastern Cataphracts, at least I did. I don't know where they're at now. May have gotten them killed. But in any case, yeah, Armenia's strength is going to lay in its cavalry charges. Their infantry is not going to be a strength. They are a very capable skirmishing faction. They're not an elite skirmishing faction per se, but they have very nice options in horse archers. They're kind of weak from a peltist standpoint, but heavy peltists aren't necessary a lot of the times. And then you also have Eastern archers, Eastern slingers, combine those with horse archers of several varieties, and that makes them a very potent skirmishing faction. So, of course, this battle went well for me. As far as some suggestions I would give you, let's go back into custom battle and take a look. The army build I used there had quite a bit of infantry in it, and that's fine. Infantry are good with an Armenian army, just because it's going to give you a way to fix enemy infantry while you're able to charge them with your cav. Your strategy should want to be with Armenia, you need to keep enemy cavalry from tying down your cataphracts, and I brought 4 cataphract units here. That's not even necessary. Sometimes just one cataphract unit, like your general, can be enough. All you need them is to tip the scale, and then you can save money by picking, say, like these noble blood cav, which are very good at dispatching enemy cavalry. Where cataphracts can be useful against other cavalry is if you're expecting heavy shock cavalry from your opponent, then Eastern cataphracts are great at tearing those down, as well as enemy infantry. Persian cav are another great way to get nice rear charges without having to spend the type of money that you spend on cataphracts. As far as builds go, let's say versus Rome or something like that, you'd want to bring plenty of axemen and lots of cartly axemen. You'd want to have a nice, solid infantry line. Royal Cataphract Gen, I think, is a good pick. Yeah, I don't see the Spear General being worth your while versus Roman infantry, and I don't recommend it. He'd probably get killed. You're definitely going to want a couple of Eastern Cataphracts, or at least one. And see, again, this may be a position where you want to bring some of those because they're a little cheaper. Man, I'd like to have more skirmishers, so you'd have to cut. And this is where it gets dangerous. You can't have too much infantry with the... You could bring Persian hoplites or something instead if you want to save some money. And again, you're going to need some skirmishers, probably at least a couple of slingers. Horse archers can be useful against the Romans too, but you're going to have to determine whether or not you really want that. So, but the horse archers can help a little bit. So again, noble blood cav can help deal with Roman cav. Cataphracts for charging infantry. You still have a little bit of money left. I mean, you could throw in a couple more, or at least one more slinger and an Eastern archer or something like that, so that you got decent skirmishing power here, enough infantry to fix the enemy, and then hopefully get a few charges in. Armenia versus Rome is kind of a long shot in my opinion, but I mean, it's still kind of a fun matchup to try and charge down enemy infantry. I actually give Parthia kind of an edge in the matchup between the two, and the reason being is that I think Parthian swordsmen would do very well versus the axemen, so I think Parthia holds an edge there. And they've got a little more variety in their units here, so I definitely would give the edge to Parthia. Median cav is cheaper still, a little worse. They also have access to the mercenary Sarmatian horse, elephants. Lots of reasons why I would give Parthia the edge over Armenia, but again, Armenia is a fun faction. So yeah, I mean, if you need to go cav heavy, you need a little fun skirmishing, or you're just looking for some axe infantry or something like that, Armenia is definitely the way to go. Definitely a solid cav faction, good horse archer selection, so that's where their strengths lie. I would expect that you're going to want to use these guys on open maps to capitalize on that, so that's my recommendations for Armenia. Hope you all enjoyed it. HeirofCarthage, signing off for now.